Hi everyone, welcome back to another Last Week in DeFi episode where we talk about everything going on in the DeFi ecosystem and our DeFi index token. My name is Korean, I'm your host as usual for our weekly Tuesday podcast where we go over some of our index tokens. Today's the DeFi show, of course, and as usual we're going to go through the price that's been going on with DeFi this week. Then we go through the news when it comes to the constituents. We have a fair number of stories today. I also want to highlight something from Bloomberg news as well, so please keep an eye out for that. Lots to go on about, lots to talk about, so much going on, so let's dive into it. So the current price of our DeFi index token is $1.01. It is down 8.4% for the last week. Prices, the market was looking pretty good going into the weekend last week, but things have come down because there are four big events that are going to happen this week. I believe there's a Fed chair announcement. There's the US quarter two GDP data. There's also worries that the US might declare monkeypox national emergency or something along those lines, which might affect the markets as well. And the fourth thing was that a lot of companies coming up with earnings. And as some parts of crypto, maybe all of crypto, is been largely correlated with the stock market for a while. So people are worried, like if Apple, if Google, some of the big tech companies come out with a less than stellar earnings or less than what the analysts expect, that will drive down the stock market, which will drive down the crypto market as well. So I think you might be seeing a lot of this sort of price action pricing in the bad news that is going to come this week, perhaps. The current market cap of our DeFi index token is $125,200. The current constituents are Curve down 15.72%, Aave 14.6%, and going down after that with 1 inch on the bottom as usual. The next rebalance, right, will happen very soon next week on the first business day of the year, August. So the first business day of the year, yes, will be next week, Monday, August 1st. So please keep an eye out for that. We might see some rejuggling. Depends how the markets react this week, of course. So today's news is not in order. Usually I like to do things going in order from Curve going down to 1 inch, but we're all over the place this week. I also want to mention as well Token Terminal. So it's a very useful tool that I'm starting to enjoy as well. It tells you like what protocols are making money. And as you can see, like we're looking at Ethereum, of course, because today is all about Ethereum. Ethereum's last 30-day total revenue, $114 million, down 47%. Protocol revenue, $88.74 million, also down as well. Annualized total revenue, $1.39 billion. What I wish is this broke it down into sort of market caps, but here it is comparing all the different chains. So Ethereum, of course, in blue. And if we look here, so it shows like Ethereum 10 million, BSC about 1 million, Arbitrum 90,000, Avalanche 32,000, Arweave 3,000, Algorand $615. That's pretty terrible. And going on as well, we can see everything going on in the Ethereum ecosystem. Ethereum's price, you can see total revenue of Ethereum, $114 million. Uniswap high on the charts, $43.9 million. Convex Finance, almost half, $20.4 million. Binance Smart Chain, I guess EVM compatible, $20.4 million. DYDX, $18.9 million. So this is a look at Token Terminal. Very useful to evaluate protocols. There are a bunch of choices over here. It's all free as well. Or as you can see, I'm not logged in. I haven't created an account. So please keep an eye out for that. All right. One of the things I do want to share with you guys as well is Bloomberg News talking about some of the things that are going to happen this week. It's going to be, as usual, about 2 minutes or so. So if you'd like to skip that and dive straight into our Chainlink news, please forward your podcast or please forward the YouTube video 2 minutes.
What are your odds at this point of a recession, as we note that data that's crossed the screen in terms of the terminal, the US July Dallas Fed Manufacturing Index falling by 22 to 22.6 versus an estimate of 17.7, just underlying the softness of the economic data that we're getting out of the US. What are your odds of a recession at this point?
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having me. So we think over the next 12 months, recession is more likely than not. And there's really three things that I would really point to supporting that view. The first, as you've mentioned, the economic data have clearly deteriorated lately. It's not just the data in the United States. Also, we've also seen purchasing managers indices within Europe and elsewhere deteriorate to a point that is more consistent with a contraction in real growth. But secondly, we've also seen inflationary supply supply shocks that are worse than expected. Obviously, the geopolitical turmoil and the war in Ukraine have resulted in a bigger reduction in energy flows to Europe than we had previously expected. That sort of supply shock is going to have stagflationary pressures for the global economy, including the U.S. And then just finally, within the U.S., inflation is looking more persistent. Wages and housing and shelter inflation. So that just means the Federal Reserve is probably going to have to go higher and maintain more restrictive policy for longer to bring that back down.
All right, as usual, guys, we are here talking about Chainlink as well. This talks about asset tokenization, which is something that Chainlink is going to talk about in their SmartCon 2022. If you've never read this, this mentions October 7th, 2020, but actually this has been updated continuously as Chainlink has talked about tokenization as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the conclusion. Though still in its earliest stages, asset tokenization is one of the most exciting and highest ceiling use cases for blockchain technology. However, without robust and secure oracles like Chainlink, tokenization will be limited in the value it can produce on-chain and be subject to centralization risks, which cuts into the very value proposition it was designed to create. Only by deploying Chainlink decentralized oracles to access real-world information will this promising technology reach its full potential to bring added value to any asset around the world. All right, so this concludes what tokenization is. So asset tokenization is a term for the use of blockchain technology to represent ownership or rights to an asset as a tradable on-chain token, though it is mostly commonly refers to the tokenization of financial or fungible assets, right? Not NFTs, such as shares in a company or a quantity of gold. Asset tokenization can hypothetically refer to the tokenization of any material or non-material thing possessing monetary value. Everything from a piece of art to a patent to an hour of a skilled worker's time. As such, asset tokenization is among the most promising use cases for blockchain, with the upper bound of its growth potential encompassing nearly all of human economic activity. A dollar number estimated to be well over $100 trillion annually. Wow, that is a huge amount of money. All right, there are the key takeaways over there. As usual with these sort of shows, we're going to go through these very quickly. The notes to all of this will be in the podcast show notes in the YouTube channel, so please do have a look at these. Let's move on. We're going to talk about 1inch and their weekly recap. 1inch weekly recap: 23 updates, news, and integrations. 518,874 1inch tokens have already been paid out under our renewed gas refund program. The 1inch DAO treasury collected $15 million. Very good. Updates, news, and integrations. 1inch was listed on Wu Network Futures. State a 1inch Q2 report by Messari Crypto. So Messari, of course, a very famous crypto intelligence company. Very interesting report for everyone to look at. Events. 1inch participated in the Ethereum Community Conference 2020 in Paris. 1inch's head of growth, G.A. Tuft, brightened the stage with the insightful presentation Building Governance Frameworks on July 19th. Ms. Neva from the 1inch BD team participated in the panel Le Wum X in Web3 branch on July 20th. 1inch held the Cirque du Poulet. Oh my god, I cannot speak French, so I apologize for all of this. Milestones achieved. 1inch entered the AVAX Holic top of the projects on the Avalanche AVAX network with a total volume of $45.65 million in the last 7 days. That's fantastic on Avalanche. 1inch entered Phantom Hub's top projects of the Phantom FDN network with a total volume of 17.4 million in the last 7 days. Media, the Power of Smart Contracts podcast with KO06A and Iguru's Yuzo on Spotify. Dokkan, The Rise and Fall, doing a UST. Okay, interesting stuff. So lots of stuff going on in 1inch. You guys can read down over here, and there's a hippo. We can ignore that. Let's move on to our Lido Finance and our Staked ETH Ethereum story. It says, a Staked ETH Ethereum curve pull transactions show a buying spree for ETH despite. Okay, Ethereum ETH has seen its price action hike following the latest hype around the merge. This is significant, especially since it always had a tentative timeline in the first place. This talks about what ETH has gained. A delay on the cards per se. Yes, however, there's a fresh take on this. Zhu Or, a well-known Chinese miner and supporter of ETH, claimed that although Ethereum developers are expected to merge in September, it will generally be postponed and DApp needs to be adapted. There's a high probability of a merge between November and December, he said finally. Wow, that's interesting. So possibly the merge is going to be delayed on the DApp side. Could this affect ETH's price in the short term? It might or might not, but one attributes that did take a hit is the liquidation concern. As per CoinGlass, over the last 24 hours, the amount of liquidations was $346 million. That is crazy. All right, this talks about liquidations. Will this pump sustain itself before traders short their positions? For that to not happen, ETH needs to rise in its fundamentals. This, alas, wasn't the case at the time of writing, so this is about a week ago. On the other hand, ETH's staking activity seems to have gathered an impressive pace. Total value in the ETH 2.0 deposit contract has reached a 1-month high of 17.8 billion. So I can definitely see that happening. More people buying ETH. You can see that in Binance when you click on their trading view. In fact, after the panic in May and June, more transactions are now swapping ETH for STETH on Curve Finance than the other way around. People are buying STETH at a major discount. Wow. Okay, interesting. So that's lots to keep in mind about ETH and Ethereum and what's going on. As a miner, I would be happy to keep mining until November, December. That also depends when the difficulty bomb is going to be deployed. They did say it's delayed 100 days. So if the whole merge gets delayed later, that means that we'll be able to mine a little bit more, but I don't think so. I think the merge is going to happen in September now, despite me having my doubts before. But anyway, let's keep going. Let's talk about Uniswap. So this is about the Uniswap phishing attack. You probably would have seen it. Again, this is from earlier this month. Yesterday, some Uniswap LPs, liquidity providers, unfortunately fell for a phishing scam, right? A phishing scam, for those who don't know, it is when somebody sends you an email, it says, click on this because we are PayPal. And you need to put in your information, and you put in your information and they steal all your money. A problem far too common in crypto today. To be clear, there was no exploit, right? Like people thought Uniswap was hacked. No, Uniswap was not hacked. The protocol always was and remains secure. Here's what happened. A phisher airdropped malicious tokens to Uniswap's LP's wallets. The name of the token directed users to a malicious interface that claimed the users could swap these tokens for Uni. This generated a set approval for all transactions, which, if approved by the user in their wallet, gave the attacker the ability to redeem all of the user's Uniswap V3 LP tokens for their full underlying value. Wow, that is so smart and so terrible at the same time. This is a good reminder for wallets and other interfaces to be vigilant about hiding spam and tokens with URLs in their name. Protect yourself from phishing by checking domain names. We operate primarily under the domain uniswap.org. Airdrops that direct you to unofficial domains are likely phishing attempts. Yes, definitely encourage it. Check for the HTTPS in a URL. Check for the name. I get spam messages all the time from like Magic Eden or Magic Eden O or Magic Eden for the Solana NFT site, and you guys have heard me talk about it before. URLs, it's so easy for you guys just to click and get things done, but you have to be very careful. Attacks like this can happen at any time on any platform, and we encourage you to stay vigilant while interacting with any contract. If you see something suspicious, please reach out to support@uniswap.org for help. And for official information about the protocol and to get updates from the community, join us in Discord. So guys, as always, very interesting story. Unfortunate that this happened to somebody and to some of the LPs. But this is a good story for you guys to understand and be careful, to constantly remind yourself, because even myself, I get lazy. I click on things that I shouldn't be clicking on. And luckily, I have not been hacked just yet. Fingers crossed and knock on wood. But yes, we need to read these stories, understand these stories so we can remember, always be on your guard, always be vigilant. Okay, let's move on to our MakerDAO story. All right, today's MakerDAO story is not so much a story, but it's an interesting thing. We just came from Chainlink talking about oracles, right? But they have some nice, interesting sort of tutorials explaining how oracles work. Oracles make on-chain and off-chain data available to smart contracts. I think most of you guys know that, right? I've talked about oracles before. We've had our researcher Karim talk about them. The Maker protocol uses oracles, which enables the use of price data of various assets to determine a number of important things, like when to liquidate a vault or how much DAI a given vault can generate. MakerDAO's oracles receive data from a number of independent feeds that consist of individuals and organizations. Each oracle corresponds to a single asset and its reference price. So how does it work? All right, now I wish this was a bit more graphical, but this is not, so this is fairly intense. In the Maker protocol, each collateral type has a corresponding oracle that publishes a reference price that the system uses. Each oracle consists of an oracle security module and a medianizer. The medianizer is sent data through a system of feeds and relayers. Each feed uses a tool called Setzer, which pulls the median price from a set of exchanges and then pushes it to a secure scuttlebutt network. that has relayers reading from it. Relayers aggregate the price data and send a transaction to the medianizer. The medianizer then takes the median of the multiple reported medians and publishes it to a queued reference price. This price is then delayed by the Oracle security module before it is finally used by the system. All right, so this explains how oracles work. This is not as easy as I think it would work, but there's still some useful information here for you guys to sort of have a read through and think about it. When protocols publish articles like this is the stuff you have to read, stew about it, think about it for a little bit, and then go through it. It's not something you could blaze through in a day unless you're very smart in crypto, which is totally not me. Anyway, let's go on and talk about our Celsius and Aave story. So it says Celsius recovered over 400 million in staked Ethereum collateral from Aave alone. The move brings the embattled lending platform total debt across DeFi protocols down to just 59 million. So since the story aired, we know Celsius has filed for bankruptcy. We know FTX has made an offer on Voyager. Lots of stuff going on there. The struggled crypto lending platform Celsius has nearly cleared all of its outstanding DeFi debt after recovering 400,000 collateralized staked Ethereum from its loan on Aave. The withdrawal amounts to 415 million in crypto that had been saved from the risk of liquidation, almost a tenth of the asset's 4.4 billion market cap. Okay, this explains what's going on. Now, one of the interesting things about the story is that like now that Celsius has recovered it, they still owe a lot of people a lot of money. That being said, so people are worried that they might flood the market with wrapped BTC, with STETH, and drive the price down of BTC and ETH. Celsius quickly pivoted to paying down its Aave and compound debt, beginning on Monday, contributing a combined 95 million in stablecoins to loans across both protocols, according to Etherscan data. It's now been a month since Celsius became one of the first industry platforms to freeze user withdrawals, joined shortly thereafter by numerous firms including CoinFlex and Babel Finance in response to bear market liquidity troubles. Though recent developments may appear positive for Celsius and its customers, some details about its financial position remain hazy. For example, the firm hasn't clarified whether it's sourcing its crypto to pay down its debts, leaving only its on-chain footprint to guide onlookers. Okay. Interesting. Good for Celsius. The better thing would still be for Celsius to give some kind of lifeline to all the people who deposited money on Celsius. A whole bunch of people have lost money from Celsius, or basically their money is frozen and most likely it's lost, and most likely they're going to get pennies on the dollar, which is very unfortunate. But hopefully some people get something back, and hopefully it's not just money is just gone and they're paying their sort of high-end creditors rather than the regular folks. All right, let's move on to our second to last story, which is about Synthetix. All right, Synthetix 2022 release milestones, halfway review, and deep dive. So it says Synthetix 2022 release milestones. We've talked about atomic swaps before. I've talked about the SSD synth bridge, right, by early August. Allow for migration without burning debt, incentivized migration, V3 elections, perhaps V2 better liquidity, lower fees. Synthetix V3 in 2023. Liquidity as a service is really interesting. A novel proxy architecture, simplified staking, permissionless asset creation. We've reached the year's halfway point, so it's a good time to revisit key milestones for 2022. Okay, I'm not going to bet we flip Ethereum, but this is a pretty ludicrous table, right? Uniswap 1 day fees 4.3 million. Ethereum's 3 million, right? Synthetix 1 million. So they're catching up on Ethereum. That's pretty cool. Several upcoming milestones will help Synthetix reach this goal. Cross-asset swaps launched in mid-June have been a big driver for volume lately, and there are still a large number of optimizations and integrations that can direct a larger share of on-chain spot volume through Synthetix. So this talks about what they have delivered. What are atomic swaps? We've talked about this before. What is the future of atomic swaps? Completed integrations. While 1inch it generates the majority of aggregator volume, additional volume can be captured by tapping into all remaining aggregators. Further, 1inch is only partially integrated. As it stands, users need to complete 2 separate transactions for USD to ETH, and then they need to do USD to SUSD to ETH in a single transaction, and then staked ETH to ETH in a single transaction. Once this is combined into a single transaction for the end user, the UX will be greatly improved and more generally accessible. Yes, I agree with that. Multiple swaps are kind of terrible. All right, let's look at stuff that's coming down the line. Perps V2 and the future of perps. Perpetual futures will be updated drastically to improve on the following goals. significantly improve user experience with lower fees and more predictable funding rates, increase open interest limits, and expand support for additional markets. Okay, are you looking for basis trading in Synthetix IO? The long wait is over. Polynomial V2 will introduce the basis trading vault into the Synthetix IO ecosystem. Synthetix V3, long-term vision, permissionless asset creation. Any financial derivative can be built on top of Synthetix V3. That is interesting. Better control of credit. Stakers can pick and choose which assets they'd like to collateralize. It improves the hedging experience and allows new assets to increase the liquidity without it being approved by the Spartan Council. Spartan Council is their governance system. Liquidity as a service. Synthetix will not just be a protocol to route trading through because of its debt pool and assets. It will be a protocol you build on top of if you're looking to increase liquidity for any financial derivative on-chain rapidly. Okay, so a really long article, something for you guys to read through as well. Let's move on to our final story for today. All right, this is from the Optimism website, but this is by Curve. It says Curve is the backbone of the burgeoning DeFi industry. It touches every piece of the stack and strengthens every integrated protocol. There is an opportunity for Optimism to leverage Curve's foundational role to further support its vibrant ecosystem. Applications integrated into Curve have realized novel use cases. Synthetix heavily utilizes Curve for synth liquidity. Their atomic swap functionality recently integrated with the Curve and has produced staggering revenues for Synthetix stakers. The stable swap algorithm, well known for enabling deep liquidity and low slippage swaps, has built a reputation for stabilizing pegs and enhancing stablecoin utility. See Frex, C3 Curve. Curve has a number of integrations with lending markets and yield-bearing derivatives. Swap fees compound the interest generated from these activities. See Aave, Staked ETH. Okay, so this is just about Curve and Optimism working together. Proposal for token distribution. How will the open tokens be distributed? 100% of OP will be distributed to LPs that provide liquidity on Curve. Very cool. Okay, you guys can read through this. You can see it is a long proposal. Lots of people talking about it. You guys can have a look at this in your own time. Let's go back to our page and talk about our tokens and the news. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's show. It is a little bit longer than I would have liked. Tonight I'll be doing an interview with a guy called Gaurav Dubey. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but he's been all over the internet. He's very famous in the Middle East and the Asian sort of crypto scene as well. It's going to be talking about a few things, including tokenization, which is what we talked about today. It'll be about 7:30 p.m. my time. And this interview, as usual, will be released on Friday. Next week, I want to remind you guys, I will not be doing a show on Tuesday. Our Soli show will be moved to Friday just because I'll be on holiday for 3 days. I have not gone somewhere else, left my apartment for 2 years pretty much. I've not gone to another city in Taiwan. I've been on short trips and not really a holiday, just to get stuff done in other parts of Taiwan. Yep, one show next week. If I can, I will try to get a show done on Tuesday, but that is very unlikely. So please keep an eye out for Gaurav's interview this week on Friday, and then no interview next week. And then the following week after that, we have somebody called Christopher McGregor. We're also going to be interviewing some people from our Pico Ecosystem Index as well in August and September. I hope you guys are enjoying all the interviews and the shows, and then we will talk to you guys later.